The heights of impunity have been witnessed over the recent days, including with fresh claims of brazen bribery in the National Assembly and institutions like that that are meant to protect the public. At the same time, we have seen the high and mighty locked up in corruption cells and buildings brought down unapologetically. Listen to what President Kenyatta had to say yesterday.
Over the last few weeks, I've lost very many friends, Bishop. Because I've been receiving so many calls that, you know, how can you just sit there and watch all this destruction going on? You must stop it. And I said, well, it's difficult to stop. It's difficult to stop not because we love to destroy, but because we must fight impunity. Because if we fail to fight impunity, we will not achieve our dreams. And a time has come for us to fight impunity. A time has come for every Kenyan to realize, no matter how powerful you think you are, no matter how much you think you know people in high position, no matter how much money you have, that will not save you.
And that statement and the recent re-energized, if you like, war on graft has been greeted with mixed reactions. Could this be the moment when the country makes a decisive turn, or have we heard it all before? Let me introduce you to my guests. To my immediate left, Dr. Alex Odote is a public policy scholar. And next to him is Daisy Amdany, the Executive Director of Crown Trust and a political commentator. And next to her is Dr. Collins Odote, Senior Lecturer at the University of Nairobi, but he is also a land law expert. And you're all welcome to Monday Special. Are we witnessing what could become President Kenyatta's defining hour, Daisy, or is this more of the talk that we've heard previously?
Well, I hope it will be his defining hour. He's been talking about this being his legacy term, and I don't think that he can leave us a better legacy than slaying the monster of corruption. Everything that he wants to do, his big four will fall flat on its face unless he deals with impunity and reestablishes the rule of law and respect for the rule of law in Kenya. So he has no choice.
All right. Dr. Odote, part of the debate has been how these things, these actions are being carried out. You know, the weekend arrests, parading people in public who are presumed innocent until proven guilty, bringing down buildings. Is it retribution? And is retribution what we need?
I don't think it's retribution. I think what, you know, President Kenyatta has never been clearer than he was at that Sunday church service when he said that if we don't fight impunity, we will not achieve our dreams and our goals. And I think to use impunity and goals in the same sentence is something that in my entire life, I've never had a politician speak in such clear terms. I think it's unfortunate that we have to take down buildings because they contravened the law of the land. They were built inside the buffer that is defined as riparian. It's just unfortunate that people get arrested when the cases come to a conclusion in terms of investigation, and it turns out to be a Friday, and they have to come and find you. So I think these, in my view, are just coincidence, but I think they send a very, very strong signal. I've never been more proud of President Kenyatta and more confident in the future of this country, especially the fact that he has made this part of his legacy to actually, as Daisy say, slay this monster of corruption. So I think that there is a pattern in this that is consistent enough to convince me that this time the president means business.
Dr. Odote, there are those who are also pessimistic, say not only have we heard it before, but the president is using, you know, terms in this quote-unquote war on graft that are not within powers that he has. For instance, ordering arrests. Can the president order arrests? You know, if there's a court order in place regarding the demolition of a building, is it the right thing to let such a demolition proceed? What are your thoughts?
I had occasion to discuss this in my class actually 2 weeks ago when he gave an order to the chair of the National Land Commission in Mombasa. And my thoughts then and still are that I think the president is doing the right thing about what the country requires, but I think in certain instances we may also be ignoring the law. And the danger with ignoring the law is that it might catch up with us a few weeks later.
Where have we ignored the law?
I think we've ignored the law because in certain instances we've had orders issued by people who don't actually have those constitutional powers. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where the people with those constitutional powers have refused to act. So the president in such instances is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. And I think it's for that reason that you see the public saying we support the things he's doing, because we have been in a situation where the law has actually been used to circumvent justice. And I think that's the danger, that's the unfortunate situation where we've been and where the president's hand has been tied.
All right. Let's listen to what Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu had to say on the matter. Why are you laughing? Look at you people.
Mambo ingine mimi naona pale kama hiyo watu wana support ya ubomoaji, mimi hapana support. Mambo iangaliwe, kama kuna nyumba yako inakaribiana na mto, wewe uambiwe ni gharama yako kuhakikisha hiyo mtu imesonga kidogo. Lakini kubomoa nyumba is not a solution. Honestly speaking, it's such a big loss. Hapana kimbia ati ni corruption, ati ni kubomoa manyumba ati mnabomoa manyumba, kwa sababu saa ingine kama ilikuwa shamba ambayo imepita mto, hakukuwa na riparian, ilikuwa title deed ni ya mtu mmoja. Yule mtu alinunua hiyo plot hakupimiwa ati mpaka hapa ndio kwako. Na sasa maneno ya riparian ya 30 meters imekuja wakati wa Mishuki akiwa Minister wa Environment.
If I tell you, everyone, including my cameramen, are dying of laughter. I don't know what is so funny, honestly. But, you know, the man does make 2 points, which I want to get into. The first being, or rather, if I could quote the latter part of his statement, is that the law is a moving goalpost, if you like, Dr. Odote. He's saying that perhaps at the time some of this land was being bought, our evolved land laws did not exist in their current state where this is riparian land. It was land that ends by the river. And now the law has evolved. I mean, do people who have had perhaps parcels of land, let's say from independence or thereafter, I mean, are they unfairly targeted and had put up developments, etc.?
First, the governor is right in saying the law has evolved, but is wrong in saying that riparian started with Mishuki's time. The law on riparian, the 30 meters, has always been the Survey Act, always. And the Survey Act is 1967. So it can't be that it has evolved. What has evolved is actually only one simple thing. The one simple thing that has evolved is that before, and that's why the Ndungu Land Commission came, people used to obey the law, disobey the law. And once they did, they would then have a title deed and say, you know, a title deed is sacrosanct. So anything that I've done, you can't go against it. The new constitution changed that to say you can't do things that are illegal and then try to get away with it. So he is completely wrong in saying that the law has evolved.
All right, but to his second point, Daisy, you know, he is saying that it sends the wrong signal to see investments worth billions being demolished.
I think this is where we see the price of corruption, because when you talk about the cost of that investment going down, we must also look at the cost of what corruption has cost us over the years in terms of also destruction, because we have seen what blocked rivers, the kind of destruction that have been wrought by construction on riparian areas. We've seen the kind of mess that we have even in urban planning, where people have grabbed land that had been set aside for certain development. And so we've got a very messy situation. Unfortunately, it is going to be very painful for very many people to correct a lot of the ills that have been done. But we cannot say that because people did wrong, let's draw the line here and sort of like sanctify the evil that was done before and then say, okay, never again.
So when you hear people say restorative justice, what we need is restorative justice. Okay, this has happened, it was bad, but we can't lose these billions.
You know, Collins is talking about people waiving title deeds and talking about them being sacrosanct. But we must also look at a lot of the corruption that has gone into the production of those title deeds. You know, we were having a discussion about how people have been able to corruptly get the, you know, documents from the Ministry of Lands that are shown to be clean, that are shown to have been cleared, yet they are product of corruption. Now, indeed, there are people who are victims in this whole thing. So we do need to have a proper method to how it is being done, even as demolitions are being done. I like that the president has said that even those officials who actually sanctioned these buildings, because like some of the ones that have gone down, we remember from the days as far back as the late Wangari Maathai, when UK Centre was being built, she was raising hue and cry, the Oshawa Centre, that whole area. So for people to start crying foul now, after they've scammed the system, gotten themselves titles, invested, people have put up their businesses there have to be penalties to everybody, the officials, the duty bearers who have caused this loss to people, but it also sends a very strong message to people who are intent on scamming the system and using corruption to get ahead, that at the end of the day, the law will catch up with you. So we really need to re-establish the rule of law, and part of it is, in a war, there are always casualties, and this war against corruption will have casualties, but we must stay the course.
And we'll talk about those casualties and what some are calling collateral damage a little later. But you did mention, you know, dealing with those who, you know, approve things like this. And Dr. Awiti, there are those who feel that the height of impunity is not on the part of the building owner who you see, whose property you see being destroyed. It is in government itself, an administration that has previously been accused of, you know, completely ignoring the courts, if you like, including on this matter of demolishing buildings. It is this administration's officials who have been licensing this. And I mean, are we seeing commensurate action that is being taken on the part of private persons internally, inwardly, to deal with the enemy within government?
I think this is, you know, what Governor Waititu said is truly absurd. It is total misunderstanding of the facts of the law, and also just plainly ridiculous. But here's the point. I think we are at a point where the past has now come back to bite us. This is many, many years of impunity, and now the shoe is in the other foot. And the reason why I say that is that the public has borne the brunt of corruption. We have paid a dear, painful price. Now it is the turn of the perpetrators of grand corruption to feel the pain, because they corrupted public officials as individuals, not as the government, but individuals who acted illegally, fraudulently, and criminally. They took money to subvert the law. Now, the president has said that the next step is to hold these individuals culpable. They should even be sprung from retirement to come and answer, because I'm sure some of the guys who signed off on the riparian buffers that Nakumatu K was built on, UK Centre was built on, Oshawa Centre, those guys are probably retired. We should bring them back, and they must face the law. And I think going forward, and I've said this many times before, these are problems that preceded President Kenyatta. They came way, way before he even knew to run for president. For office. And now he is the person who has to clean this up, and he has made this part of his legacy commitment. It is going to be painful, but as Desi said, we must bear the pain. But now the pain is going to the people who must rightfully carry that pain. The corrupt cartels in this country must now finally pay the price. So we know that corruption actually costs you personally when the law catches up with you.
And though State House has denied it, in that same vein of, you know, dealing with the enemy within, I mean, is a cabinet reshuffle possibly going to have to be, you know, imminent?
You know, and a cabinet reshuffle may be imminent, may eventually have to happen. Not so much because of politics, but if we were to go to the entire hog, there'll be cabinet secretaries culpable. There will be, and not one, but substantial. And if that happens, a reshuffle will legitimately be necessary. But I think I just want to make one small point. The one small point is that as we do so, and as we celebrate the process of the renewed fight and the reintroduction of the rule of law, we must not fall prey of ignoring all rules. That because people must be dealt with, let's do it without ignoring without following the due process. Because if we do so, two things will more likely happen. One is that these people will most likely be let off by the courts because the process was never followed in the right way, or will be paying compensation. And by the secondly, we'll then be saying that it is okay to disregard the law so long as you're doing what is unpopular. And I think we must guard against that also as we go along.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure where, because even the chair of ISK, what is it, ISK? The Survey, Institute of Surveys, Survey of Kenya, was basically saying we should be cautious. But the law is very clear. It is 6 to 30 meters. And the 6 is the discretion of the surveyors and the land planners. And I think in what kinds of conditions these are granted also depends on the portion of the river channel, depending on the maximum flow, the peak flow in terms of discharge. Yeah. So in the lower parts of any basin, you may have to go beyond 30 meters. In the upper reaches of these rivers, you may actually have to go less than 30 meters. So that has to be some determination that has been made. Now, it will be interesting to see how that piece of legislation or regulation is enforced with respect to all these buildings that have been brought down. And I think that's where we need to be very clear that the interpretation is clear, and those discretions must have been made in writing at the time that they were. But I don't think that there would be any discretion that would apply to a building that is on top of a river.
Actually, Alex, the problem for me is not the substance. On the substance, we agree. I think the only problem is the process of going about it. That in the process of going about it, we might actually be saying, we're breaking this collateral damage. Let's break the law because we're doing the right thing. That's wrong.
Speaking of that, let's just take a look at what Kwame Owino of the Institute of Economic Affairs had to say on the matter. And he says, folks, we have had corruption for the entire life of Kenya, and now a few demolitions here and there. Half a dozen people we dislike are charged, so you think we should award the DPP and EACC a Nobel Prize for peace. And let me add to that the fact that, yes, a lot of, well, you guys are laughing quite a bit today. There are those who, yes, perhaps are quite enthusiastic. Is it 1A, early days for that? Secondly, can we sincerely expect that, you know, as he's saying, collateral damage does not matter? Because there's another school of thought that says, I mean, if you look at some of the cases where you've had more than a dozen people dragged to court, that it is quite likely that some of these people are in court just because they held you know, a certain title in office, and not substantially the people who mastermind and orchestrate grand graft.
But I think, you know, Kwame is a good friend, but I think Desi and I were talking before this set. This is kind of interesting, cynicism. But I think, and I totally believe that this process is going to yield something. And I don't think it is naivety. But I think it has to start at a certain point. There has to be a certain number of finite people taken to court and help and go through due process. And if they're acquitted, that's fine. But to your point about just a few people who probably were not really directly involved in the big fishes let to go. I think they have their day in court to basically make the full disclosure and say were they involved or what was their role or what else do they know. But what gives me confidence in this process is that now it's a multi-agency operation. So we're getting information and evidence from all sides, you know, from surveillance through the National Intelligence Service. We're getting the anti-corruption folks going, the DCI, etc. So I think that what I might call triangulation of evidence will give us some comfort that, you know, there is a fair chance to allow the process to go as diligently and to produce some of the best outcomes that works both for those who are accused, that they get a sense of justice, and also for the public to actually have comfort that this time it's actually really serious. So I think what we should do is actually just allow this to play out, and where we must criticize, we should actually then support the process to be more efficient. But I think to just basically say that corruption is, of course it has been here for a very long time, but somebody had to put a peg in the ground and say, it stops here.
Daisy, will this entire effort rest on whether the president can go, you know, the whole hog, the entire distance? And by the way, what is that? Because as he has rightly said, and Kwame pointed out, this is something that, you know, if we were talking about impunity and improperly acquired wealth, you know, there are those who argue that this means going straight to post-colonial era. Can he go the full hog, and what is the full hog?
I think we should support him to go the whole hog, because aside from the president, we mustn't be bystanders in this effort to fight corruption. The president has called on all Kenyans to support this effort. And there are those people who've come together. We've seen the business community under KEPSA, they've come together. The religious leaders have come together. And I think that as Kenyans, if we feel that we can make recommendations, we can make our contribution towards this fight against corruption, we must, because it's not an easy fight. You heard the president talking about people calling him, and it is going to be difficult as we go on, as he continues with this fight, because it's not just about demolishing you know, buildings that have been built on riparian reserves. We've got issues to do with very, very serious corruption, maladministration of the state, and the president needs to clean up house. We must join in this effort. We must support that effort. I think for us to be cynical is to not understand that if Kenya doesn't succeed, it doesn't succeed for all of us. But if the president, if these efforts are successful, then it is successful for all of us. We have nothing to lose to put our effort and our support towards the president. And on this, I mean, I think that Kenyans, we at some point, you know, we can't continue to pour cold water on every effort that is being made, because we have been saying the president needs to fight corruption. And in fact, we have accused him of being the weak link in the fight against corruption. We've said that it is the political will that is lacking. So when he manifests the political will, we shouldn't look that gift horse in the mouth. We should encourage him on. We need to get onto that bus. We need to make our recommendations. We need to point them in the right direction. If indeed, as Collins is saying, and it's important that it is done within the confines of the law, because Kenyans will support a genuine fight against corruption. Because if the president stops now, then he is going to have to apologize to the people whose lives have been destroyed by this initial effort, and they will have to you know, make restitution to them. So this fight can only go on, because it's been very drastic. It has started very hot and hard, and we must encourage him. We must continue to encourage that fire, so that the president is assured of our support. If he's losing friends, it's fine. He will gain new friends, and we will gain a better Kenya. We need to fight corruption. There's no doubt about it. So for me, this is the one gift horse that I personally, I'm not going to look in the mouth, and we are encouraging everybody to get onto this. Building bridges is talking about having national conversation, and it's not just in Nairobi. You know, we are talking about it as though this is a fight that is in Nairobi. It is everywhere. Corruption is so pervasive. It's everywhere. It is in the counties. It is everywhere. So we need Kenyans to get onto this agenda, and to get onto it fast, and to begin to direct and support this effort.
But you know, Dr. Witi, in as much as that is true, it is, I mean, well, let me ask it this way. Is it a fight that equally requires a degree of political calculation? Because we have seen what at least the first phases of this fight has meant even for his own party. And this is a president who's going to need some very aggressive legislation pushed through parliament. I mean, can he completely turn a blind eye to the possible political cost or maneuvering that's necessary?
Well, I think there will be a necessary amount of political fallout. And I think that's a good thing, because the political leadership of this country, anybody who goes into politics knows that government is the place where you raid for money. Why do people go to government? Because that's where the money is. I know so many people who have left six-figure salaries, almost like seven-figure salaries, and gone to government for six-figure salaries, and they say, you don't know how we're going to make the money. I think this must stop, because the incentive has always been that you will put your hand in public coffers and take the money and put it in your pocket. Now, the politicians who are there are also lining up every day for handouts, and so they're going to protect their friends who are in high places who take the money and throw it out for them to pick out. So the president should be ready to lose a lot of friends for bills to be frustrated. His political agenda could easily be extremely jeopardized by this fight, especially the Big Four, because the people are going to retaliate. And now, what we are doing is we are reading the 2022 succession politics into this as well. Now, so let's not lose sight of that.
But having said that, is this big enough a legacy to say, even if it is at the expense of Big Four, this will have left a mark?
It is for exactly the same reasons that Desi has mentioned. This country is in a bad place. Our future, our present, our past has been devoured by corruption. If Mr. Kenyatta is putting himself in front of this train, I'm going to join him there, because this is a worthy sacrifice. This country must be cleaned out.
Big Four was in trouble anyway.
Because of corruption.
It was in trouble because the reality is we don't have sufficient resources to run Big One. We were discussing this off the set, housing. Forget Big Four. For me, this is not just about corruption. This is about restoring the rule of law. And once you restore the rule of law, everything else is possible. So in my view, I think this must be done.
Guys, we can't go without talking about the National Assembly and its antics. I mean, some have gone as far as saying, seriously, do we even need the National Assembly if bribery can be so brazen where everybody's like, let's just go to the Senate to get a report? Do you think that's an exaggeration? And how do you fix the National Assembly? These are elected leaders. Are we going to recall all of them?
It's not an exaggeration. I actually wrote about it in my column for today. It's not an exaggeration because it is a demonstration of how low we have sunk as a country. And I think dealing with it, and that's why for me I think saying going the whole hog misses the point. Dealing with it is not about getting rid of all the MPs, it's about restoring our values as a country. Taking us to the 2003 moment. You remember in 2003 after the elections, it took just one act for citizens to believe that you can do the right thing. All we need is for us to believe we can do the right thing. I don't think that all the members of parliament in that house are evil. I don't think they're all corrupt. I think you join a bandwagon because of what you find, and what we need to restore is the right bandwagon, and the problem will be fixed. We
just have under a minute. Final comments. Daisy.
I think the president is on the right path, and I would call upon Kenyans to support the president. We should support the president. I agree 100% with what Collins says. We really need to look at our values as a country. We need to restore proper values and learn to do the right thing. I think this is the time, and let's all let all hands come on deck, and let's support the president. Let's support him in prayer. Let's put him before Yahweh. And I believe that Kenya's best days are ahead of us. If we deal with this and if we support this, our best days are ahead of us.
Dr. Witi.
I think what the president is doing is exactly what my colleagues have talked about. He is restoring our confidence in our country. He is taking this battle to the doorsteps of the corrupt and evil cartels that have killed the future of our children. Kids go hungry without enough food, without education. Hospitals are without medicine. Even the most basic aspirins are not in hospitals.
Right.
We have roads that are built by crooks and they kill millions of Kenyans. I think the time has come for him to basically say there is no bigger fight that he is going to commit himself to than to rid this country of corruption and greed and restore the rule of law.
Dr.
So
Odote.
he has all my support in this fight.
This is the legacy.
This is 8 years late. It is the promise we gave ourselves in 2010. If you read the preamble of the Constitution, we desire a country based on human dignity and the rule of law. The president does this, he gives meaning to the Constitution, and he can as well go and retire after that.
And that's our time on Monday Special.